You know, in most online poker, your opponents are complete strangers. You might never see them again. But on ClubGG, it's a totally different ballgame. You're playing against the same people over and over, and that changes everything. If you really want to build a real, repeatable edge, you need a completely different game plan. So what is the secret to consistently winning here? It's not about memorizing a bunch of charts for opponents you're never going to see again. No, the real secret is much more direct, and honestly, it's built right into how the platform is designed. Let's just get right to it. On ClubGG, you're in private clubs, which means you're often seeing the same faces across the table. That's where your advantage comes from. It's all about recognizing their patterns, picking the right seat, and building smart habits that pay you back session after session. Okay, let's dive into the first phase of our strategy. This is all about what you do before the cards are even in the air. This pre-game prep is where you really set the foundation for a winning session. All right, tip number 1 is all about using the built-in Smart HUD, but using it the right way. See, most players look at it like it's a report card, a final grade on another player. But we're going to use it like a weather forecast, a prediction of what's probably coming our way. So what exactly is the Smart HUD? Well, it tracks past hands to give you a quick summary of an opponent's tendencies. Think of it like a temperature gauge. Is this player running hot or cold? It gives you a hint, a starting point, but it's your job to confirm those reads with what you're seeing at the table right now. So how can you use this tonight? It's actually really simple. First, get in the habit of adding a quick note after any hand that goes to showdown. Then, start looking for the extremes. You see someone on a heater, they feel invincible, right? So you can value bet a little thinner and expect to get called. But what if you see someone running ice cold? They're probably playing scared, and that's your cue to apply some pressure and steal a few pots. This leads perfectly into our second tip, which is a total game changer. Win the seat before you even think about winning the pot. Seriously, sometimes the most profitable click you can make isn't raise, it's find a new table. Just let that sink in for a second. We spend all this energy agonizing over some tricky river call, but a simple decision we make before a hand is even dealt can be worth so much more to our bottom line. It's huge. So, what's the game plan? Here's your simple 3-step checklist. First, hunt for tables where 3 or more players are constantly seeing flops. More players means more action and usually more mistakes. Second, you want to get position on the loosest, most splashy player at that table. This means you get to act after them, which gives you all the power. And finally, don't get lazy. If a great table dries up and gets tight, you've got to be ready to move on. Okay, so you've done your prep, you've picked the perfect seat. Now it's time for your in-game blueprint. This is all about how you execute your winning plan once the action starts. Tip number 3 is a really powerful 2-part strategy. First, build a solid preflop baseline and then exploit your opponents. What this means is you have a solid default game plan that protects you, but you're also ready to deviate from it the second you spot a weakness you can attack. Your whole strategy is basically a dance between these two columns. Your baseline, your default game, is on the left. Play tight, be disciplined. But when you spot those juicy weaknesses on the right, like players who limp too much or call 3-bets too often, that's when you deviate. You abandon your default plan to specifically attack that mistake. It's a constant dance. Solid defense, then targeted offense. All right, let's zoom in on a specific format where a little bit of homework goes a long, long way. Tip 4 is to master short stack formats, like all-in or fold. In these games, almost all of the tricky post-flop decisions are gone, which means your pre-flop edge is absolutely everything. Look, in these fast-paced games, you don't have time to think. You have to do the work before you even sit down. Pre-decide your ranges. The middle of a hand is not the time to be wondering if some suited connector is a profitable shove. Know your ranges by heart, build them around hands that dominate what your opponents are likely shoving, and then track your results constantly so you can refine your strategy. And now we've arrived at the final phase. And I'm not exaggerating when I say this is a genuine superpower in these games. This is the one habit that separates the long-term winners from everybody else. And it all happens after you log off for the night. Tip number 5. Run a fast review loop after every single session. Now, why is this a superpower on ClubGG? It's simple. Because unlike those massive sites, you're playing against the same people again and again. Every little observation you make, every note you take, is an investment that's going to pay you back with interest in your very next session. And the best part? It doesn't have to take hours. This simple 5-minute loop is incredibly effective. Just save 3 hands that felt tricky or close, write down 1 sentence about what you thought was going to happen, add a specific note about any regulars you played against. Then, before your next session, you combine these fresh notes with your Smart HUD data. This creates an unbelievably powerful feedback loop. Okay, let's pull all of this together, because these 5 tips aren't just a random checklist, They form a single cohesive system, a cycle of prep, execution, and review that just keeps building on itself. This table right here, this puts the entire system right in your hands. It connects every single tip to what you should be watching for, why it matters so much, and the exact action you can take. You start with the HUD, looking for those hot and cold indicators to confirm your reads. Use that info for your seat choice, finding those loose tables so you can exploit position. This all informs your baseline strategy and tells you when to deviate. And of course, it all feeds back into that final, powerful review loop. See, it's not just a list of tips, it's a complete winning process. So that's the system. That's the complete blueprint for building a real sustainable edge on ClubGG. The only question left is, how are you going to use this strategic loop to boost your profits in your very next session? Thanks so much for tuning in.